Hi guys, I'm just away to measure the valve train on my CB350K, so I thought I'd film it just in case anybody found it interesting or helpful. So the 350K is a parallel twin 2 valves per cylinder. So what I've got here is the set from the exhaust number 1, 2 and the inlet 1, 2, and this is a brand new set that I'm going to use as a reference. What I would start off measuring is the valve seat, followed by the valve retainer, and I measure this in 2 places, where the inner spring goes and where the outer spring goes. So what I'll do is I'll measure all of these and I'll write it all down, then I'll bring you back. Okay, so I've got all the numbers written down. The top line is the outer spring on the retainer. The second line is the inner spring in the retainer. And the bottom spring is the valve seat. I've also measured the springs, but we're going to measure them a different way. So there's no specification given for wear for these retainers, but because they're made of titanium, they will wear. So just purely for safety, I'm going to go on a maximum of 10%, because these things are not overly expensive, but I would rather try and use them as much as I can. And then this engine will not do a lot of miles before it's rebuilt, so that is within 10%. This one here I'm going to replace because the valve springs chipped it. I don't know how well it'll come on camera, but the valve springs actually chipped it. So I'm going to replace that one. So what I'm going to use to measure the springs is a Proform 300 PSI gauge. I've got my spec sheet from Kibblewhite. I've got 2 gauge pins I've made up. This one is the installed height, and this one is the installed height minus the open pressure. Now I went for that one because that's the same spec as the Megacycle X5 cam, which I'm going to be using in this engine. So the next step in the process is I'm actually going to measure these valve springs. This is a new set I'm going to do. So you're wanting to use this as a slip gauge. If you keep pressing down, then this will actually force the gauge up. So you just use this and you just get it so it just slips. So we've got 99 PSI. So I'll go to the next one. That's our installed height. We'll go for our open pressure. Which is 233. So what I'll do is I'll go and measure all the old ones and I'll write everything down. So I've measured all the springs and I've got everything written down. So all the figures, they're not too far away from each other, but they're all well down. I'm looking for a maximum pressure difference of 5%. So that should give me 96 and 224. So these are well under. This was my new spring, and that was 99 and 233. Now the one thing I would like to add is this gauge reads in PSI, and the measurements given from Kibblewhite, which is 101 and 236, is in pounds only. So what I've done is this valve spring diameter is 1.145 inch. The area of it is 1.020 square inch. So if I times these numbers by this, I get bang on that spec. So just keep that in mind if you're measuring bigger valve springs, that you might have to do these calculations to get an accurate figure. So I'm going to be replacing all these valve springs. So on my next video, I'm going to be going through all the processes of fitting the new valves, setting the install tight, and assembling the head ready to fit to the engine. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. This is my first ever YouTube video, as you could probably tell. But it's been quite fun making it, so I hope you enjoy watching it. Cheers.